If you've seen Star Wars, you've probably wondered at some point, what is up with the way Yoda speaks?
Size matters not. Look at me. Judge me by my size, do you?
Does Yoda talk like that because he's 900 years old and slowly losing his mind? Or is that something that's common to everyone in his species? Will Baby Yoda talk like that when Baby Yoda starts talking? Well, I can't answer that. But what we can do is explore Yoda's speech patterns as a way to understand natural English speech patterns, as a way to understand English grammar. And actually, it's a really good way to do it because we can kind of compare both. So that's what we're going to do in this video. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so that you can see future videos. And now let's get into it. To understand the way Yoda talks, I think we first have to have a bit of a foundation. So just quickly, the standard English sentence structure, you probably know this from primary school, is subject, verb, object. Subject, the one or the thing that the sentence is about, the verb, the action, right? And then the object, which is receiving the action. Now, it's not exactly that simple, but that's the basic structure. We say SVO, subject, verb, object. An example of that would be Yoda teaches Luke. Yoda is the subject, teaches is the verb, and then Luke would be the object, receiving the teaching, right? Okay, that's pretty simple. But then we have subject-verb complement. Now, what's this? What's the difference between subject, verb, object, and subject, verb, complement? Well, this would be when we have a verb that isn't really an action. Verbs like is, and was, and become. So for this one, we say a complement because it's not the object of the verb. It is still about the subject, though. So for example, Yoda is a Jedi. But this could also be an adjective. For example, you could say Yoda is powerful. Yoda, subject, is, that's the verb, and then powerful is an adjective, yes, but is the complement of Yoda in the same way that a Jedi is a complement of Yoda. So now that we have that basic foundation, let's take a look at some of Yoda's very interesting, very odd sentence patterns. First, my home, this is.
My home, slimy. My home, this is.
Now, when Yoda says, my home, this is, what is going on? Why does it sound like that? What's happening grammatically? I think the best thing to do is first say it how a normal person would say it in normal English, then kind of go backwards, right? So if I were saying that same thing, I would say, this is my home. This, that's the subject. Subject, verb, right? This is, and then the complement, my home. This is my home. Okay, so then what is Yoda doing? What he's doing is not exactly flipping it because he's keeping the this is in the correct order, but he's kind of sliding it over, right? And then taking the end, the complement, and putting that first. So my home, that's the complement. This is my home. This is. Now, don't take that as the standard Yoda rule because it's very complicated. There's a lot going on here. But the good news is that the natural English way to say this is my home, subject, verb, complement, is relatively straightforward, is actually easier to understand than how Yoda says it. How about when we have a different verb tense, like present perfect? What about when Yoda says, found someone you have?
Found someone you have, I would say.
Yoda says, found someone you have. Again, there's some flipping going on here, but what is happening? Well, again, I think let's try to say it the normal, natural way. Simply, you have found someone. Now, found is an action, right? So that is a normal action verb, and we can say then it's an object instead of a complement. You, subject, have found. That is the present perfect tense. That's a verb tense, right? It's made up of two words, but it is the present perfect tense. Then someone is the object of the sentence. That's very straightforward, right? Very simple. So then what's happening with Yoda? Well, this is where it gets really weird. Yoda is starting with the second half of the verb tense, of the present perfect tense. Found someone, you have. So again, he's shifting everything over and taking things from the end and moving them to the beginning, except he's not just taking the object or the complement and putting that at the beginning. He's also taking the second half of the present perfect tense. So second half of the present perfect tense, found, then the object someone, then the subject you, then the first half of the present perfect tense, have. Found someone, you have. So again, should we say that's a rule? I don't think so, because we're going to look at kind of, I think, maybe, I'm not sure, some exceptions. Now, what about when Yoda uses something like an adjective? An adjective is a type of modifier. For example, powerful Jedi was he.
Powerful Jedi was he. Powerful Jedi.
Oh, come on.
So what's going on with powerful Jedi was he? Okay, well, that looks like it's starting with the adjective. So is he just doing the basic thing where he takes the thing at the end and moves it? Well, it's not that simple. So if we were going to say this normally, it would be he was a powerful Jedi. He, subject, was, that is the past verb for is, right? Of course. A powerful is not the complement here. We can have an adjective be the complement if it's about the subject. But in this case, powerful is modifying Jedi, not he. And so we would say it's simply modifying the complement, which is Jedi, right? The adjective is modifying Jedi, not he. So he was, verb, a powerful adjective, Jedi complement. Now, what Yoda's doing is very strange here, and it's kind of hard to get your mind around. In fact, I'm not quite sure I have my mind around this one. Powerful Jedi. Okay, so here we have the adjective and then Jedi. So we've taken the two things at the end. He was a powerful Jedi. And then we've put them at the beginning. Well, that's what we did before. So far, so good, right? Powerful Jedi, those two things, boop, move them to the beginning. My home, this is, okay? Same kind of thing there. But now it gets a little weird. Not powerful Jedi he was, but instead powerful Jedi was he. Now, I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but I don't think it's because it's in the past tense. Because if it were in the past tense with my home that was, right? I think he would say the same thing, my home that was, so he wouldn't flip the order. But because this one has the adjective and maybe other modifiers too, I'm not totally sure, the verb and the subject are flipped. So powerful Jedi was he. It sounds like a question, but it's not a question. But that's the order that you would have if it were a question. Was he a powerful Jedi, right? So he's making a statement, but he's flipping the was and the he, the verb and the subject, as if it were a question, even though it's not, but then still moving the things at the end to the beginning, which he has been doing up to this point. So I'm not quite sure I've completely understood this, but that seems to be what is going on. Very interesting. And this is making me think maybe it's not something unique to his species. Baby Yoda may not do this. This may be just a 900-year-old who doesn't care. As soon as we think we have a pretty good sense for what's going on, then Yoda says something like, powerful you have become.
Powerful you have become, Dooku.
When Yoda says, powerful you have become, initially we might say, oh, the adjective is at the beginning. Great, that makes sense. Well, hold on a second. What is the structure of this sentence? Is it the same as the other one with the adjective? Not exactly. Okay, so if I were going to say this, it would be, you have become powerful. That would be the subject, then the verb in the present perfect tense, have become, then powerful. Powerful is an adjective, but it is the complement and it is not modifying any object. It is the complement of the subject, okay? So, what's happening with what Yoda says? Powerful you have become. So there, complement, then the subject, you, then have become, present perfect tense. Wait a second. So what Yoda's doing here is the same thing that he did with my home this is, where we start with the complement, then we have the subject, and then the verb. But I thought when we have the present perfect tense that we cut it in half and put that also at the beginning. So wouldn't that be become powerful you have? Yeah, maybe. Okay, well, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's because the complement is an adjective and not a noun. But another little question mark goes up when I see this one. Remember, when there is an adjective, then maybe we're flipping or reversing the verb and the subject, like it's a question. So that would be something like, powerful have you become? Because that would be the question, have you become powerful, right? But that's not what he's saying here. So maybe that's because the adjective in this case is not modifying an object like it was in the other example. In this case, the adjective is the complement. So maybe that's the explanation, or maybe it's because he's 900 years old and he doesn't care. Finally, how does Yoda deal with questions? Judge me by my size, do you?
Judge me by my size, do you?
For this one, let's take out the by my size part. I think it doesn't really help us understand what's going on. So let's just say, judge me, do you? Because that's really the structure of the sentence. Now, how would you say that naturally? Well, it would be, do you judge me? What's the structure of this sentence? Do, in this case, is not the main verb of the sentence. Do is what's called an auxiliary verb. This is a verb that helps you form a question, particularly a yes-no question. For example, do you? Okay. Judge is the main verb of this sentence. That's called the predicate. It is the verb that the subject does. So, do, auxiliary verb, you, subject, judge, that is the predicate or the main verb of the sentence, me, that is the object. Do you judge me? Now that is a slightly strange sounding sentence, but let's put that to one side. Okay, now what Yoda's saying is, judge me by my size, do you? Or judge me, do you? Judge me, do you? And I suppose that would be a tag question, so there would be a comma between those two. Okay, so he's starting with the verb and then the object. So, verb, object. Then, do you, auxiliary verb, subject. So for this question and some other questions I've heard, he's not flipping anything around. Nothing that crazy or strange is happening. He's simply taking the last two words, judge me, the verb and the object, and moving those to the beginning. Now, the kind of strange thing that's going on here is that he is separating the subject and the verb. My home, this is. So this, subject, and is, the verb that's connected to the subject, those were together before. But now they're not together. Now he's separating the verb that is about the subject from the subject and moving that over like it is the object of the sentence or like it is the complement of the sentence. So he seems to not care too much that the verb necessarily be right beside the subject. It's more about having these sort of chunks and then moving those chunks around in the sentence particularly taking things from the end and moving them to the beginning. But you can't apply, as we've seen, you can't apply one rule to how Yoda does that. He does it in different ways at different times. But if you want to try to state that as a rule, then you'll run into some difficulties because of the powerful Jedi was he thing where he flipped around the subject and the verb. So all of this to say, hopefully now you have a better understanding of natural and correct English sentence patterns, because we've talked about quite a few. That is my hope for your takeaway from this video. And if you understand how Yoda's English works or not important. I can't even say that I understand it, and I'm not sure if anyone does, including Yoda himself. And my takeaway from that is probably Yoda is just a very, very, very old 900-year-old man who either doesn't care to follow his own rules, or maybe is forgetting them because he's slowly losing his mind. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you got a lot out of it. I wonder, do you think Baby Yoda is going to start talking like Yoda? I shouldn't say Baby Yoda, right? I should say Grogu. Do you think Grogu is going to start talking like this, or will he speak more natural, correct English when he starts talking? Okay, let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't already done so, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also, you can get a free English course, Natural English Conversations, if you want to really get serious about your English. That is in the links in the description, and I will see you in the next one.